Hey everybody, it's Peter, and this is the Honda Prologue. And if you've seen my channel before, you know I like to cover motorcycles and ATVs and side-by-sides and all kinds of power sports, but you also know I dabble in electric vehicles. And that's because in a previous career, I used to be considered an expert on electric vehicles. I used to review vehicles as well. So in this video, I'm gonna take a quick look at this Honda Prologue. And I can do that because it's sitting here at Riverview Honda, and they give me complete access to anything on the lot. And this one was on the lot, and I said, I'd like to just take a quick look at it. And they said, sure. So if you like this kind of stuff, make sure you hit like and subscribe. And if you want to see more of this, make sure you just watch to the end. That's one of the things you can really do to help my channel. Again, mostly it's going to be power sports, but like I said, we're always going to touch on EVs and other things, including EV motorcycles later this year. We got some new ones from BRP coming, so lots of stuff to look at. But right now, we're going to talk about this thing. So what can you expect in this review? Well, first of all, I'm gonna try to point out some of the things that the other videos aren't talking about. That's kind of one of the things I do on this channel. So this is not gonna be a traditional review. Hopefully you'll see some other things, but I'm also going to give you a bit of a perspective of someone who, like I said, used to be considered an expert on EVs and maybe in some cases still am an expert on EVs. We're gonna talk about why I think this is a surprise sales success for Honda. They didn't expect it to do as well as it's doing, or at least other people didn't expect it to do as well as it's doing. And we're going to talk about some of the pros and cons of this and some of the things that may make it right for you and may not make it right for you. So let's get going with this review. So one of the things that generally makes a very good EV is an EV that's designed from the ground up to only be an EV. Now there used to be benefits when EVs didn't sell very much to having something that was a shared platform, because you'd have some shared pieces and parts, and that could help keep costs down. Another thing, EVs are still expensive anywhere you go right now, so let's be honest, this is a more expensive Honda than you could get other places. But one of the things that's interesting about this model is it does have a shared platform from GM. And when I say shared platform, it basically means General Motors designed this platform, and they did a lot of things right. A good EV should have what they call a skateboard platform. And what that means is between the wheels, down there, you have a very large battery. And this is a little bit larger than some of the other EVs out there. And that's part of why the wheels are spaced so far apart. So when you have a skateboard-like platform, you can put dual motors in it. You put one in the front, you put one in the back, and that way you have all-wheel drive. Now this is available in the United States as a front-wheel drive model, but in Canada it's always all-wheel drive. So you have two electric motors driving stuff. That's very similar to another brand that's very popular for their electric vehicles, Tesla. You'll see on the back of their vehicles it says dual motors. That means it's an all-wheel drive car. So this one has a very long wheelbase. That long wheelbase, the distance between the front wheel and the back wheel, does a couple things. First of all, it's longer than any other Honda out there, longer than the Honda Odyssey minivan, even, as Honda says. And that creates a lot of interior space. So you're gonna have something that has a lot of interior space. Now, when you design a vehicle from the ground up as an EV, in my mind, you should put a frunk in it, a front trunk. This one doesn't have that, so it's something you have to keep in mind if that's one feature you're looking for. Although, for most of you, if you're coming from a gas car, you don't care. And even if you have one in an electric vehicle, do you use it that much? How much do you use it? Those are all things we can talk about. So let's start at the front. I'm gonna pop the hood. We're gonna see what's under there, and then we're gonna work our way back through this vehicle. So taking a look under the hood, you really don't see a lot of difference from a gasoline car, which is one thing that surprises me, and perhaps this is one of the reasons that Honda has decided this is the last EV they're gonna build with GM. So at this point, they've built this one, and they're only doing that one. Now, you may be surprised to find that there is a 12-volt battery right there. That is your standard, powers the entertainment system, infotainment system, that kind of thing. That is your electric motor there. All those orange wires are high voltage wires, so that just helps the emergency crews know what's going on, but there's really not a whole lot of difference. Now, I do think you could put a bit of a storage space in here. It's quite a bit down, you can see the frame rail, but one thing you do see is the packaging overall, even when it's not done to sort of hide and give you a front trunk, it's still set back, which helps with center of gravity, helps with sort of the handling of this vehicle, and you got a lot of weight down low with the battery, so you're gonna have a vehicle that handles fairly well. Now, Honda's done some things on this that I really like, so let's come back, look at the front styling, and talk about a few features that maybe you don't see, but they're important. So looking at the front of this vehicle, one thing I really like is Honda has stuck to a sort of a more normal design language. So you have the black grille out front here, which looks like a grille, but it's just, of course, that black panel. And you do have a bit of a grille down here. Some of it's a false grille, but it is a grille. And again, it keeps some of that, at least familiar Honda design language. It doesn't look weird. Not being weird is one of the nice things that Honda does with this. Now, let's talk a couple safety features. These are things that the other videos may not point out. If you get something like a Tesla, they have a camera system up here, and that is what drives almost everything it does for sensing. And that can be good, it can have flaws. What Honda does is stays with their Honda Sense system. So they've got the camera up here, which helps with your lane keeping system. So that helps the car if you want it to stay in the lane. It also helps with some of your forward collision and other types of features. But you also have a radar plate down here. Not every EV maker is doing that radar plate, and that keeps it standard in line with standard technology of today. And in my mind is one of the best overall systems for sensing different things. You've got radar for your smart cruise control, you've got the camera for some of your safety features, and they can work together as well. You also have parking sensors here. Teslas used to have parking sensors on the front of their bumpers and the rear bumpers, but they don't anymore. And again, they're just trying to use everything with a camera, and there are some flaws with that. So you have a few little features here that Honda does well. Coming back around the side, we're going to talk about a few other little features here. So you've got your signal lights here, you've got your little marker in the mirror that Honda has in all of their decently equipped cars that show you blind spot detection, blind spot warning, blind spot prevention even. But this car has a 360 camera, which means you have a camera in the front bumper, you have a camera down here in the mirrors, and a camera out back. So you still have a backup camera, but you also have a top-down view, and it's actually a camera. It's not just an inferred kind of system that some other electric vehicles have. So you have a very clear view of what's around you, and you have the parking sensors working with that camera to give you beeping and all kinds of other things. Again, a normal system, not something that's brought in new for EVs, but something that Honda has proven, something that works, and again, Honda technology. One other thing I like that's normal is door handles. It's just silly, all of these EVs bringing these sleek door handles that sit into the vehicle, and in our Canadian climate, that's not always the best thing to have. There's workarounds, there's other kinds of things, but I recently took a senior citizen out in my Tesla, and that car, I needed to train someone not only how to open the door from the outside, but how to open the door from the inside, and that's just a weird conversation to have. Speaking of weird conversations, one weird conversation you won't have if you drive this vehicle is nobody's going to ask you about the politics of the person who's the CEO of the company that made your car. That's something that happens with a certain brand, and I'm pretty sure it's not going to happen with this. Another nice thing you have here is you have standard roof rails up here. So these roof rails are really rare on EVs. They avoid roof rails altogether because, hey, an EV driver wouldn't want to lessen their range by putting something on the roof. But the reality is, with about 450 kilometers of range, most people could do a lot of their driving. There's enough fast chargers around in that kind of distance that you can get that range, and you can put an extra roof box up top, you can put your bikes up top, and a lot of times people are putting things on the roof not to go hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kilometers. It's nice to throw my bikes on the roof just to go down the, down to the trails or down somewhere like that. You also have a little bit of towing capacity with this, so you can put a hitch on it. It's about 1,500 pounds towing capacity. Again, towing is not a good thing to do with an EV. It usually ruins your range, but the ability to throw a hitch rack on, take a utility trailer to the dump, take all that little stuff, you can still do with this, which means that this can be a legitimate replacement for a regular EV. Or, I shouldn't say EV, for a regular SUV. Screwed that up. We're gonna keep that in. Take a look at the back of the car. You've got some nice Honda design language. They have their little E with the 2 dots. That's kind of their symbol that they're using for their EVs. You don't have a big Honda logo. It's the only one without a Honda logo on the back that I can think of. Maybe the Ridgeline has switched to Ridgeline now. I can't remember, but it does say H-O-N-D-A in a unique font. That's kind of nice to have. Gives it a modern look, but still very familiar. So you have that modern kind of Honda look. A lot of EVs have a tight rear window, and the angle of things can make from aerodynamics and from just snowfall and other things, it can make the snow sit here or the dust gather here. One of the key things with making an EV efficient is to have a nice sharp cutoff, and that tends to be the kind of cutoff that lets the wind cut off and the dust sit on your window. So you do have an incredibly small rear windshield wiper or rear wiper here, and that does give you a little bit of visibility when you need it straight out the back, but of course you've also got the camera system and, like I said, parking sensors here on the front and the rear of the car. Now let's take a look inside the trunk before we hop inside the vehicle. So I've got the wide angle camera on here. I am gonna, actually, we'll just switch from wide angle for a second. Whoops, oh boy, there we go. Let me show you the key here. So there's the typical key. You've got lock, unlock, you've got twice for remote start. Now remote start is not remote start on an EV, it's remote climate. So you can double tap that and get the climate going, which of course you can do from inside a garage, even with the door closed, because there's no emissions from this when you're driving it. You've also got a double tap to open the trunk, so that's what we'll do, and a panic button. So we're gonna do double tap to open the trunk here. If I did that right, did I do that right? Maybe it didn't. There we go. I don't think I double tapped it the first time. There we go. So now we've got double tap. We're gonna go wide angle for a second just so you can see what's going on here. This does have a box in here. Underneath the floor is one of the things that some EVs will have some space for. This one does have a little bit of space. I can put down to my elbow at the very bottom here. Hopefully you can see what we're doing there. But yeah, they've got some floor mats in there. They've got some underfloor storage. You can put your laptop, you can hide things out, and that's nice to have. You can get a cargo cover in here. It is set up on the plastics on the side for something like that. I'm gonna walk in front of the camera here. Over on this side, you do have a 12 volt, or sorry, 12 volt port over on that side. Overall cargo space is fine. It's not huge for the size of the vehicle. I think it'll be fine for anybody moving from like a CRV or something like that. But really what Honda has done, because of the design of the batteries between the wheels, that tends to prioritize passenger space over luggage space. So again, I don't want to say that this is small by any means. It's a good sized luggage space, but if you were expecting a little bit longer luggage space, it's not quite as long as it could be, simply because they prioritized rear seat space. So while we're talking about rear seat space, let's show you that right now. So I'm gonna bring you in the rear seat in just one second. We're gonna zoom in just a little bit here. You can see that little silver spot. Let's see if I can get there. Silver spot on the door there as we come back out to the normal side. That is a button to unlock the car from the rear. As long as you got the keyless fob in your pocket, you can use that. A lot of times vehicles only put that on the front door. They have them on the rear doors here as well. So we can open this door, and Honda's doing this a lot lately. So there's CRV, I believe. You can open almost 90 degrees. This one's still a very wide opening door. I'm a 6-footer, so as I sit in here, you can see the legroom is immense, and there's 2 levels of recline here. I've got a pretty good level of recline. Headroom is a little tighter than other SUVs. Now that's fairly common in an EV because you have a floor that has a lot of batteries in it. You can't sort of sink the floor down. Now usually the problem with that is a lot of EVs, they have a seat that is fairly low to the ground in order to compensate for headroom. Everybody has to compromise to decide what they're going to do. So you want to keep the roof low for aerodynamics. You want to keep the seat high for comfort. So the headroom isn't fantastic. We'll show you that in a second, but it's fine. But what it does is it does bring the seat high enough that your legs are actually on the seat and comfortable, and there's just a lot of space here. This seat is back further than it needs to be for the front, but as a 6-footer, tons of space in here. So I will bring you in here in 1 second. We'll show you, actually we'll do that right now. We'll show you what's back here, and then we're gonna take you into the front area as well. All right, so I'm on the standard view right now. I want to show you just a little bit of stitching in here. You've got some orange style stitching there. You've got some nice perforated seats. One thing that's a little bit odd for me is Honda chooses not to put heated rear seats in. That would be standard in this price class for any Honda. It's not standard in this vehicle, which is a little bit weird. Some other EVs have that. I'm not going to fault them for it. A couple things I do like here, as you hop in the back here, I'm going to go full wide angle just so you get a little bit different view. Try to show you. You do have pockets in both sides of the seats. That's a nice thing to have. Sometimes they don't do that. You've got vents here, you've got a little storage space there, and you have 2 USB-C ports down here and a regular plug. Now I don't know the exact voltage. Let me see what it says here. It doesn't say anything on there. So there is a plug there, so you can plug your laptop in with a regular plug, something like that. You do have a multi-speaker sound system here, so you can see there in the doorway. You've got a little tweeter up there, so I believe it's 10, could be 12 speakers. I can't remember off the top of my head. You'll have to forgive me for that. Mostly what I like is you have soft touch things where you need them. They're still hard plastic up here, but soft touch anywhere you need them. The rear seats are as comfortable as front seats in most vehicles. Honda has this thicker seat design. They've done this in a number of their vehicles. It doesn't make any difference in this car. You still got a lot of space back here. The other thing you're gonna notice from the rear seat especially is you have a full panoramic roof, and this one opens. Some EVs, they don't open, but of course the front panel there can open. So nice view here. You can shut the panel here as well, which not every EV has. This panel shutting is something like a Tesla Model Y will not do that. So you can cut some of the heat out, that kind of thing. We're gonna flip the camera around just to show you my headroom. I complained about it a little bit, so let's show you what we've got. So taking a look at me from the front, you can see I have tons of headroom to the glass, but if I had the seat reclined like I do right now, and I want to put my hand back here, it's really just the thickness of my hand. So if you had taller hair than me and you're 6 feet tall, now I might sit taller for a 6-footer, it is going to be just enough room. It's very comfortable, and I don't think most people sit back like this in the car. They sit with their head like this, and in that case you have all kinds of headroom, but it is worth noting that the back of that sunroof, you do have a little bit less headroom than you could. Again, I don't think it's going to matter to almost anybody, but it is worth pointing out. All right, let's take a look at the front seat. All right, hopping into the front seat here, I want to go a little wide angle. It is pretty dark in here as we're filming. I'll try to lighten it up in editing, but we'll just sort of see how things go. First of all, big screen right here. You can see I got a full battery and a big screen over there. One thing that you don't see in every EV, I mean, at least you do in all the regular brand EVs, but not in Teslas, is a start button. So you put your foot on the brake, start it up, and you've got everything loading up. One thing that's interesting to me is you can't move this car. And I'm talking move at all. Let me just see if I can turn the climate system off for a second. You can't move this car at all until you buckle your seatbelt up, which is a little bit of a different design. Now, the dashes are customizable. If you want to see a dash review of this, let me know. But you have a nice dash in front of you. The other thing you have, which you can't see right now, maybe you can see it a little bit if I can film it right. The headlights are in the way. Oh boy. There is a heads-up display there. I can see it. I can't film it somehow. Yeah, sometimes the head-up, yeah, you can sort of see the heads-up display right there showing a little bit of something, but it's fading away when I focus on it with the camera. That's a common thing to film. It's hard to film a heads-up display. So you do have this. If you do just see these displays flickering on camera, they're not flickering in real life. That's not a concern. All right, taking a look over here, you've got a lot to go through here. Like I said, we can show you this in another thing. So this is basically a Google-based system. You have the same thing in GM system and the same thing in Honda. Now, the difference with Honda is Honda allows you to have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, and Apple CarPlay is wireless. GM is moving away from some of those things. So this is a system where you get the Ultium platform, but you also have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, as you can see. A lot of other cool things I can show you here. There's the camera. There's that 360 camera. Now, when I'm backing up, it'll show the backup lines. It'll give you parking warnings if there's something there. But if you just turn on the camera and you're sitting here, you can see that sort of 360 view there of the vehicle. One thing I'd love to see, and not every manufacturer, actually very few manufacturers do this, but it'd be cool if the image of the car actually showed the color of the car. So this one here, you can look at the front, that's the front of the car. You can look at the back, that's the back of the car. You can look at the sides of the car. You can do all kinds of different things, or just straight down from the back. There's all kinds of different views you can have. You can look out the side. So again, this is all good stuff if you're parking or doing that kind of thing. And of course, when you are in reverse, you can use your, well, the backup camera doesn't go on unless I throw it in reverse, and that's with the grid lines and stuff like that. So there's all kinds of ways to view with this. Down here, you have a nice selection of actual buttons. When I say this is like a normal vehicle, it really is like a normal vehicle. You can see I've got it set to dual zone climate control here. So you can set your temperature there, set your temperature there. You've got heated and ventilated seats, only in the front. Set all your regular temperatures. One thing I will say, if you're driving an EV, as much as possible in general, you want to leave it in the auto setting. The climate system is a piece of some hybrid and all electric cars. It does help warm and cool the battery, and it does sort of work. If you have this thing set to like 20 degrees and it's not on auto, the fan might be blowing, and that will affect range. So there's just little things to keep in mind. As much as possible, set the temperature, let the car figure it out itself, and that can help you with your range. Down here, just like the back, 2 USB-C ports, only unlike the back, they get a regular plug. You get a 12-volt port out here. I don't know how much you need those anymore. A large space here with no wireless or no phone charger, and that's because you have one right down here. You can drop your phone in there. The only thing I don't like is that it's only a single phone. Some vehicles are coming with dual phone chargers now, but not everyone has that. This here, I believe you can change the color of these ambient lights. I haven't played around with it enough, but you can see the same color ambient light there, even if it doesn't look the same. It is the same in person. Comes down in here, and you can change some of that, and it does carry through to the side of the vehicle there too. So you've got some nice ambient lights, nice stuff. And then again, on the steering wheel, you've got normal Honda buttons. So normal stuff for audio, that kind of thing. You've got your heated steering wheel right there, cruise control over there. You've got normal windshield wiper stock. The only thing that's a little bit weird is the gear shift gear shift here. It is something you're gonna have to get used to. It's sort of like you pull towards you and go up to reverse, and pull towards you and go down to drive. It's very, very, very easy to use, but it's not the typical Honda, in the center of the pile there. So overall, a very good system here. I quite like the Google systems. They have it's not Android Auto, it's a Google system that allows you to have this control in the car. It does obviously work with Honda, and it works with all kinds of things. So you've got various things here. You've got the mapping here. Oops, let's dismiss that. You've got the mapping here, which is, again, very Google Map friendly. You can set things on your phone and send them to your car. Lots of just nice stuff you can do with your Google account. So very good system here. But the biggest thing you're going to notice is this car is going to be easy to use. Google has the best voice recognition system out there. Google and Apple do. So unlike other cars,
you'll need an internet connection.
You can see as soon as I say the GOO word, it will listen to me. But the point is, You can command it to do various things from operating the temperature to navigation type stuff, and it's just a very good voice recognition system. So you can use all of that and take advantage of it. That's a good thing to have. A couple things you do have down here, paddle shifters. That's something that is common on the or at least on the one side. That's common on Kias and Hyundais. You can just change your regeneration. We can talk regeneration in another video, but good stuff here. Long story short, very good stuff here. Bose audio, I should point out, is Bose audio. I can't remember how many speakers, 10, 12, it's a lot. There's also sport mode down here, so you can change your stuff up. Again, a lot of this stuff in other vehicles is in the dash. I'm just gonna zoom in there for you so you can see some of the buttons there. This is typical Honda stuff. It's in where you want it. So if you get in this vehicle, you're going to feel comfortable driving it like any other car. It is a bigger car than some vehicles. It is going to be different with the EV, but the controls, operating it, you're going to be very comfortable very quickly. Oh, one thing to point out, this is what I was going to mention here. Let's try to zoom into there. You do have OnStar here. This is not a Honda thing. This is showing you that you do have a GM platform. OnStar is one of the better, maybe even one of the best sort of systems like this. A lot of car manufacturers have that. Honda has their own version too. I quite like OnStar. I don't think that's a downgrade. It is just different. It's not usual that you see OnStar in a Honda. So who should buy this vehicle? Well, right off the bat, it is an EV. You're going to have to want an EV to get into this. Now, if you do want an EV, but you want it to be normal, maybe you're sharing the driving with someone who doesn't want an EV. This will have familiar pieces to Honda's other vehicles. So if you come from a Honda especially, a lot of the controls, the safety systems are going to function the same way, and that's a good thing. Now, if you are a Honda person, you may or may not like that it's on a GM platform. This GM platform is one of the better systems for EVs out there. It's not something that would scare me away, and I think Honda probably does a couple things better in Honda's own way. So you get that out of the mat. Now, why wouldn't you want this EV? Well, it doesn't offer you that front trunk, for instance. It offers you 450-ish kilometers of range, which is pretty good. Not quite the top of the class, but if you go top of the class for mileage, you tend to lose a little bit on space and other types of things. So you kind of have to decide. 450 kilometers is generally enough to reach all the chargers you're going to need to reach and do that. Now, this car is capable of quite fast charging, but that often depends not on the car, it depends on the chargers that you reach. So there is a little bit of awareness. If you're charging from home, it's going to be peanuts to charge and peanuts to fuel this car. On those few trips you go out, you probably have to plan a trip a little bit, but of course with Google Maps, both on your phone and here, they do list major EV charging. They also are starting to list the types of chargers you have, so you might be able to plan your trip to skip the bad chargers that charge a little slower and go to the good chargers that charge a little faster. So all of that is getting easier. I like the long wheelbase. I'm sure it's going to give a good ride, although I have not driven this long enough to be able to tell that. So, I mean, to tell that on a variety of roads. So it feels like it's going to give a good ride. It does seem to have a sharp turning circle for what it is. Some EVs do not have that, and the longer the wheelbase, you have to be concerned with that. This one does seem to be fine like that. Overall, I quite like this EV. I do understand why it's a good seller. Again, price point is something you have to decide. Do I want to pay for EV and maybe lose a little bit of luxury? Things like no heated seats in the back. At that price point, you can get heated seats in other Hondas. So it's something you have to consider. Overall, I see why people are buying this. I also am curious to see why Honda is not continuing their relationship with GM. What have they got planned? Well, we're going to find out in 2026 when they are expected to introduce their next full EV, purely a Honda design. So that's what we can look forward to. I want to thank Riverview Honda for letting me take a look through this thing, let me use their space and get that. If you want to check them out, the link is in the description, and we'll talk to you in the next one.